Welcome back to Crossout, welcome back to the test server, and now we will be looking at the wedge changes that we just briefly talked about in the previous video. But I wanted to bring this into a little bit more detail to let you guys know what exactly these changes are all about. As we talked about briefly in the last video, wedges now take damage whenever you lift the target. The damage that you take depends on how much you lift the target. As you can see right now, we're super slow. As we let go of him, we get a bit more speed back, and now that we're free, we get all of our speed back. So if we lift the target partially, then we will add some of his weight to the build. This means that we will highly likely be over tonnage, but not necessarily over our weight limit. And that is the main difference between this, because the more that we go over tonnage, we will of course be slowed. So if we wedge him half, then we maybe add half of his weight to the build, that build out there, that will actually also put us over mass limit. But if we lift him all the way up, then we will add all the weight to us, and that will also mean that we are way overweight for what we can be. The result of this is the fact that we start losing our wheels. If we go over weight limit, the wheels will start taking damage. So what you want to do if you are a wedge player is that you don't want to go for these heavy builds anymore. You simply want to strip it down to the bone. And I mean, the only way you can do that is to probably not play wedge builds at higher power scores. Because if you want to be an effective wedge player, then you will at all times have to have this mask with you and actually be sure that you can lift people around while also, you know, staying alive for long enough to actually stay in the fight. Basically, that's sort of the most important things about it. I'm just trying to strip as much weight as possible off of this build so that when we go wedge the guy out there, we won't take any damage, hopefully. This, as you can see right now, is 6,000 mass in total. So if we go and wedge this guy now, our mass should be taken to a total of 12,000. If that is the case, though, we actually do not know the final numbers for this right now, so we do not know if you just add their mass. But as you can see right now, we are not taking damage when we lift him, but we will 100% be a bit slower than before because we add some of his weight to us. So that's sort of the main change to this. But as you saw before, when we were heavy, we started taking damage because upon lifting this guy, we would go over our mass limit, meaning that our wheels would start taking damage. Now, there are some restrictions to this. I don't know if I want to call it restrictions, but there are some things to this that actually affects the way that you deal damage to people. First of all, every movement part can take crushing damage. That is very important to note. Whether you're a spider or you are, if you're a hover player, if you're a big ram player, if you're a tank player, every movement part can take damage from crushing. That is the first and most important thing to remember. So what a lot of people have speculated is if this will be the new meta. We messed around a little bit with it on the live stream, and I mean, I must say I am quite surprised about the effectiveness of this. As you can see here, as we let go of the wheel mode or the leg mode and go into wheel mode, we also drop down onto the build, putting additional weight on him because we lose a lot of contact with the ground. And the result of this being is that the build instantly loses its wheels. Is this going to be effective in combat, though? There are two things about it if you want to make a build like this. First of all, you will be have to be heavy. You cannot do this as a light build because you won't apply enough weight for the opponent to go overweight. So you will need to do this on heavy builds, which quite limits your speed and your agility in general. So this also means that I think there are some restrictions to these opposite wedges that people have talked about that are not really gonna happen as effectively as some people might have speculated. One thing though about this that is super scary at the moment, and I'll just show you a recording of it right now, is the fact that so many hovers get caught by melees that have hover catches. And the way that the system works right now, also just want to point out, the system is very early. This is only the first test that they're showing us. This is going to be refined more. Woody Rowe just said it is highly likely not going to be in patch 0.11.50. So do not expect this to just show up like this and not be finished. This is just the first test that we're seeing. So repeat, probably not going to hit the live service. Just getting that out there. So if you see people talking about this, please tell them it's not going to get on the live service in the current form. Because people are very quick to, you know, make assumptions. So, you know, No lasers yet, fine. Showing you what it looks like though, and this is the main critique that I have about this system. Look at what happens to these hovers when they are applied crushing damage. So that is quite scary, and the biggest concern about it right now, it seems like the hovers take way too much damage compared to the fact that, you know, the melee literally just rams and skinners. The players in here do nothing but just skinner onto them and you know, put themselves on them. You saw those 2 Clan Wars builds where it was quite bad. It wasn't as bad as the staged example that I did with Beetler, but still, in my opinion, way too strong. So hopefully that will change, and I do indeed have a feeling that it will change. But that is actually pretty much what this new wedge change is all about. The most important thing for you to do is simply just to make sure that you, if you want to play wedges, have a light as possible build. This is ideally probably done at lower power scores, but for higher power scores, which is also where people have been complaining a bit, you know, it's discussable whether this is realistic, that it can just drive under a spider and then just pull the spider around for days, basically. That has been the main critique of it. So that is probably gonna be what is gonna be the heaviest hit on wedges, that you can't do that anymore. So it's gonna have the highest effect, in my opinion, at the lower power scores, but in general it is just gonna have an effect, and I think that is what is so great about this. One thing that we haven't actually covered, which I just want to cover here, is trying to put a hover on top of it, because watch this. Now when you fly a hover on top of these builds, you see that nothing immediately happens, but if you do happen to, for a second, let's just see if we can actually make this work, you should deal some damage. We rammed that wheel off there, but if you have if you're either hitting like a high build, or if you maybe hang a bit low because you lost some hovers, then when you get on top of these builds, you will also deal crushing damage, just like anyone else. You could probably force, you see that? There we go. Yep, there was a bit of damage there again. So once you get wedged, you will actually deal some damage to them. So people running into you with the skinners will get hit a bit by this. I'm curious to throw a skinner onto this and see if we can actually do that. I don't even know. Let's try. What if we put a skinner here? There. Perfect. And then let's try driving. Oh, whoops. And then we have to save this, and then we have to load this, and then test drive this. Perfection. Now, just gonna point the skinner down here and skinner ourselves. And now he got on us. So that's, you know, that's not really ideal. There we go. Oh, wait, what? Okay, kind of unsure what happened there. Let's just try that again. Let's try not to be so speedy this time when we go onto the build here. Let's just slowly, you know, just slowly approach here and skinner. See what happens. All right, so that's definitely not gonna be a thing. So what I'm thinking here is, oh, it is to some extent. It kind of depends on where we hit it. You see, I think it's based on the distance, because our blade wings there at the front sort of go leaning on the build. That applies the weight to the build, so it's only whenever that happens. But as you can also see, the de-wheeling process here is so much slower than before. But you can deal some de-wheeling damage to them. But still, there are quite a lot of limitations to this for the hovers. I feel like this will hit hovers harder than anyone else. So in the current stage, hovers would be completely dead, because everyone uses hover catches already, and the hover catches applies weight to the hovers, deframes the hovers, game over. That has been it for this wedge video. I hope this cleared some things up with the wedge changes. If it did, don't forget to drop a like, and guys, catch you in the next one. Bye bye.